turn this on. So we're going to talk a little bit about rendering. So what that means is taking the three-dimensional geometries that you're creating in your software program like Rhino and applying materials and lighting to it and putting it in a context so that you can convey to somebody what your intent is in the kind of experiential qualities of the building, object, whatever it might be that you're designing. There's a lot of different programs that allow for you to create renderings, whether they be more photorealistic, more abstract, but we're going to focus today on V-Ray for Rhino. So you have gone in and set under render and current renderer your current renderer to V-Ray for Rhino, and you've seen here that you have two new panels, one dealing with the sun and lighting, and one dealing with materials and render settings. So I'm just going to dock those up here to give me a little bit more space on the screen. And then we're just going to use some very simple objects. So let's draw a box. And it doesn't really matter what layer it's on for right now. We're just really looking at materials and properties. Okay. And let's go ahead and just render this. So it's the blue R render. So if I were to have this open in my screen and press render, let's just see what we end up with. So V-Ray is going to go in, and it has everything set as a default to kind of a flat white, and there are no lights on. So right now we're just seeing on a generic black backdrop our white box. Obviously we want to have more properties to this, more qualities to this. We want to have it not floating in the abyss of space. So the ways that we can start doing that are, did everybody get the first render to pop up? Yeah? Anybody having problems with that? No? Okay.
So you just highlight the box and render?
You don't even have to highlight the box. You just click on the V-Ray render tool. Make sure that you're clicking on the V-Ray one and not the Rhino one, which is the blue sphere. Right. Okay, so let's first give this guy something to sit on, which you can do in your up here under V-Ray. Click on Add V-Ray Infinite Plane, and it'll pop a surface into it'll drop a surface in at the XY plane, extending infinitely in all directions, right? Not really, but actually it extends to the extent of your grid. Yep.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Properties or layers, or which one? Which ones are you missing? Properties and layers? These guys over here, or on the left side or the right side? On the right side. So you can under standard, you should have properties and layers here. You can click on those object properties, and it should pop up. You don't have any tabs at the top. The tabs are Rhino 5, so the tabs are different. You should have a standard toolbar at the top.
What
Okay.
if we don't have the standard toolbar at the top?
Then you can go under Tools and Toolbar Layout, and you'll get a list. Yours will look slightly different than mine, but you want to have on Main 1, Main 2, and Standard. And like I said, yours will look slightly different than mine. I don't have V-Ray installed on my Rhino 4, so I can't. So Main 1 and Main 2 are the ones on the left side. Standard is the one across the top. And then type in properties or type in layers, or sorry, properties and layers, or layer, and it should turn on your panels on the right side. Did that work?
How can I tell if I'm in Rhino 4? Should I pull it to Rhino 4?
You should, it won't say anything specifically, it just matters which one you started, right? So if you start Rhino 4, it should open Rhino 4. You can tell if you have under current renderer V-Ray for Rhino or not as an option. If you do, then you're in Rhino 4. You guys getting your toolbars? Does everybody other than Angela have toolbars? Change its color so you can see it a little bit better. It's a good color for the screen. Let's try this. Okay. Okay, so for now we'll assume that everybody's getting close on toolbars.
One other quick question. How
Yep.
did you do the infinite plane again?
It's in the V-Ray panel. Add V-Ray infinite plane.
Oh,
Okay. And it'll put it on whatever's the active layer, so you can put it. You can make a base plane layer, or you can keep it on whatever layer it pops into. We're usually. I guess we should do it just as best practices, but you know, we've been talking about keeping things organized by layer in terms of types of content. So it's good to kind of have things in the right place on the right layer, so you're keeping things organized. When you're rendering, most times the layer and the material are the same thing. So you would put all of your glass on the same layer. You'd put all of your concrete on the same layer. You might have multiple layers. You might have first floor concrete, second floor concrete if you want to divide it up that way. But for now, we're just gonna go with what we've got here. So if we run the same render command again, this time now with an infinite plane, you can see that we get a white box on top of a white plane, which is not doing us much good. So we need to go in and start putting in some lighting, which you can do in the second panel that popped up. You've got a sun, and then you've got a series of different types of lighting. So click on the sun and bring up the sun toolbar. This should look somewhat familiar based on the Rhino rendering that we've been doing. If you want to get the controls for the location, you need to turn off the manual control. So in the top, you want the sun to be on, so make sure the check mark is on for sun, and make sure manual control is turned off. And then you'd be able to scroll down and tell it you want the site to be Salt Lake City. If it can figure out where I am. Salt Lake City. And then you can go in and set your time of year and time of day. So I'm going to set it for kind of evening in June and hit OK. Did everybody get your sun dialog box to pop up? Angela, are you logged on? Yeah, you're good? Okay. So if we render it now, we should start to get something slightly different. Oh, I need to adjust the camera, sorry. Cancel that. We need to set one more thing before we can get an accurate representation. So in the V-Ray panel, beside the M, there's an O, which is V-Ray options. Let's go in and turn on camera. Turn on the camera, and we're going to turn it into a physical camera. So here we're going to keep default, and all of this will be the same, and then just click on physical camera. And so the lesson that we had a couple weeks ago about physical cameras also plays into this. So these are all of the same settings that you have on a physical camera and that we talked about with shutter speed and f-stop, film speed, lens length. All of those sorts of things are controlled here and allow you to make the adjustments on how you're looking at something. So once you've turned your physical camera on, you should now be able to render and get some more information into the scene. It's underexposed right now, so I'm going to go in and open up the lens a little bit more. If you were looking at it on my screen, you could see a very faint shadow of a cube. It doesn't read on the projector. So I'm going to go back into options under camera, and I'm going to up the exposure. So I'm going to make the shutter speed less. So it's going to stay open longer. It's getting a little bit better, not much. Let's see. Just turn it on for now.
I just see a gray mass. Kind of see the.
Yeah, you should be able to kind of see your object. It should start becoming more and more visible. I'm gonna reduce this, see if that helps.
Keep turning down the shutter speed.
Yeah, keep adjusting. There we go. The shadows aren't showing up though. What's going on here? Let's give it a minute to render. What's that?
What's that? Oh, so that's what I need to do. What
Oh, I
does
need to
that do?
place the sun. That's why. I have to put the sun in the scene. I'm sorry. So once you set your sun settings, click OK, and then you need to just click anywhere in the scene. Sorry, it's too early for rendering. Now when you render, you should have light and shadows.
Click OK on sun.
Yeah, once you've opened up the sun panel, open it up, and now my rendering is going to be way overexposed. I wondered why we couldn't see anything. So I'm going to go into options, turn this back to something similar to what we had to begin with. So you should have just like a three-dimensional arrow that pops up in your model when you click on the scene after you hit OK.
Should be the perspective, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean you can render any view, but the perspective is kind of what we're going to be working with. So it's a little bit yellow because it's calculating the color of light at the end of day. And we've got our object and we've got our shadow. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so that you can see the actual thing. Right, so now we've got a white box on a white plane that's casting a shadow on June 16th at 6 o'clock in the evening. And you can see that there's a lot better quality to the light and shadow than there was in the Rhino rendering. It calculates things a little bit more accurately, a little bit more realistically, so you see that the color of the white box is reflecting onto the ground plane a little bit. You can see that the shadow has a gradient to it. The color of light is really, really good. And so far all we've done is turn on the sun, right? And it should work fairly quickly. Is everybody getting it to work okay?
I'm not getting the sun turned on. How did you turn that on in the render?
So you, when you go in and set your sun, right, you set it to where you want it and the time of day, click OK, and then you'll have, it'll ask you for the position. So you just need to click in the scene,
Oh, okay.
and then it'll pop in. Make sure that you don't put in two suns. So I'm going to delete this one. Yeah, one sun at a time. And it doesn't matter where you put it. It's going to cast the light in the, it doesn't matter where the arrow is.
Once you have the sun, then you hit render.
Once you have the sun, then you can turn on render. You might be overexposed depending on how you were adjusting things before we turned on the sun, so you might need to go in, set your shutter speed to 100 and your f-stop to 8. And that should be a good place to start. You can go in under properties if you select your sun, which is the three-dimensional arrow, and click on modify sun, and you can go back in and change the sun that you already have set in the scene rather than putting in a new sun every time. Right, so if you want to change the day and time, you can turn off manual control and set it to, now I want to look at it, in the height of the day. I don't know why it's not remembering that I'm in Salt Lake.
How did you get that back?
Select the three-dimensional sun and click on modify sun under properties. Oh, yours, you're in 4, so you don't see that. You should select it under, do you have the sun showing up under properties?
It just says light, and then it gives me intensity, enable,
Click, is there a drop down for where it says light?
yeah, and then it's an object. Oh,
You should have light as an option there.
very good.
Okay, we'll figure out, Joseph, how to adjust the sun in Rhino 4 during the break. But is everybody generally getting it to work? Yeah? Okay. So, let's talk about a couple of other options that you can... Sorry?
Did you turn on another plane or something?
For what? I turned on the ground plane, the infinite ground plane. Did you turn that on?
Yeah, I have that. It's rendering so great. Talk about it.
Delete your sun and put in a new sun. Jeremy's having the same problem. And otherwise, we'll check your render options. So in the options, there's a lot of different things that you can start playing around with. So the camera, you can adjust the lens length, you can adjust whether it has vignetting, which means is it going to be slightly kind of darkened around the edges. You can adjust the depth of field and have that be on so that it starts to have a range of area that is in focus. You can start to set the environment. You can put in an image in the background that it's going to use as the kind of image of the sky. And so we're not going to get too far into all of that today. We're going to talk mostly about lighting and materials. But this is a slightly more advanced version of what you've been doing in the regular Rhino rendering to allow for you to have a little bit more control over materials and those sorts of things. So Jenny, did you get your, no? Be a little bit easier to see. So if you're having problems seeing your white box on your white plane, let's start giving things some material. Under your V-Ray panel, if you click on M, it'll bring up your material editor. Mine is a preview version of V-Ray, so I don't have any of the defaults. You guys should have some default materials popping up, no? Okay, that's fine. We're going to make our own anyway. And we're going to download our own anyway. So do you see this type of screen? Yes? Okay. Under Materials List, Scene Materials, right-click, and you'll be able to create a material. We're going to create a standard material. Okay? Right-click, Create Material, Standard Material. You guys having trouble?
Can you just say that one more time?
Sure. Right-click on Scene Materials, Create Material, and then Standard. And it should pop up with this screen that shows diffuse options, maps. Does everybody see that? So right now, if we hit preview over here on the left, it's going to show us that we have a gray material, right? It's mapping this material onto the sphere, right? You guys doing okay? Yeah? Okay. If we click on that, we can change the color. So if I want an orange material, I can hit preview, and it'll now be orange. I can change the transparency. So transparency is controlled between white and black. So white is completely transparent and black is completely opaque. So if I want something that is partially transparent, I can pick a gray color. And then I hit preview again, and you can start to see that it's becoming transparent. You can give it a roughness. You can give it a lot of other types of qualities. For now, let's just deal with color and transparency. So I'm going to make an orange transparent material and hit OK. Sorry, I don't have to hit OK. And I'm going to right-click on Scene Materials again and create another material, a standard. and I'm going to make it, I don't know, turquoise and opaque. So I'm going to leave it as black.
Is there an okay or?
No, there's no okay, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah. And I'm going to make a second box. I'm going to click on one of the boxes and right click on the first material and apply material to selection. Then I'm going to click on the second box and click on my second material and apply material to selection. If I switch my view into rendered view, I should start to see that those two objects are two different colors and materials. And it'll look dark in here, but it'll be better when we render it. So make two materials, and I'm gonna double click on these so I can change their name. I'm gonna call this translucent orange, and I'm gonna call this turquoise. U-O-I-S-E. Right click on scene material again, create material, standard, yep. And then you click on an object, right click on the material that you want to apply it to, and apply material to selection. Right click, apply material to selection. Then I'm going to exit out of my material editor so I can see the screen. And if I render now,
So right clicks, I have a highlighted box.
and apply material to selection. Yep.
Not a whole lot's going on.
If you, in your Rhino viewport, right click and where it says perspective and change it to rendered, you should see that the material changed color.
Got it.
Okay. Yep. Are you guys getting that to work? Yes? Great. It's pretty simple, right? This would have taken us like hours in 3D Studio. Not really, but it's so much less complicated. Select the object that you want the material to be on, and then in your materials dialog box, click on the material that you want, right click on it, and choose apply material to selection. Yep. They're still gray? Did you change your, which color did you change the material? The first one? I'm gonna hire you as debuggers on my next project. Okay, so everybody's getting we've got almost everybody getting color and everybody's getting transparency. Yes? Anybody having other problems? No? Okay, check on that, Angela, let us know if it's not working. Okay, so the only problem is right now that there's a difference between what I'm seeing on my screen and what's rendering, right? So if this is what I want to see and I click on render, it's cropping it off, right? It's cutting off the sides of it. So we need to look at the output and start adjusting the frame of view that we're looking at. Right now it's defaulting to, I don't know, 800 by 600 or something like that. So go back into your options and click on output. And this is also where you control the resolution and the image size. And you can get view aspect, which will change it from 1.33 to whatever the aspect ratio of your viewport is. And you can click the L, which means lock. And so then if you click on any of these, you'll see that it's not 640 by 480, but it's 640 by whatever 1.75 is, the aspect ratio. The other thing that you can do is in your, let me go back and undo that for a second. So I'm going to unlock this. I'm sorry? No, you can just click view aspect, get view aspect, and so whatever your aspect ratio is, it'll bring it up, and then you can lock it in place so that you can change these, and they won't be the defaults, but they'll be whatever the aspect ratio of your viewport is. You can alternately before you do that, you can type in safe view or safe frames. What is it? Frames. What's the command for it? Sorry. Yeah. Okay, I'll fix this during the break. There's a command that I'm blanking on at the moment that will set your viewport. It'll crop the image in your viewport to be whatever the aspect ratio of the rendering is. So for now, we'll go about it the other way. So get view aspect, lock it, and then you can change your resolution. I'm going to keep mine small so that it doesn't take very long for it to render. So now when you render, you should be getting the same view that you have on your viewport. Okay.
Would that command work on Rhino 5 on YouTube under render?
Which command?
Well, I guess it would be different options, but when we want to render something on Rhino and it's a little bit off,
We're talking about the aspect ratio? In Rhino 5, if you're using just the Rhino renderer, you should use the safe frame options, and I'll find it that I'm calling it the wrong thing for some reason. Let me just do a quick search. We'll get the answers so that we don't have to. So I don't have to make you wait. I swear it's called safe frames. I don't know why it's not coming up. I must be hallucinating.
I was just curious.
No, it's a good question. And I have no internet access. Awesome. So it's under render, show save frame. There we go. So under render, if you click show save frame in your viewport, it will show you what the different viewports are looking at, what the different views are looking at. So if you were in the Rhino render and you didn't have the aspect ratio option, you could go in and set it so that you're in your viewport know what you're kind of cropping your image to. So you'd be working within these frames. Okay. And then you can just turn it off. I guess there's not a command for it. You just have to click it under the drop down. And you can also choose under the safe frame settings, show it in the active view. I would turn off I would just have it be the live area. And then you'll only have one. Or you'll... What's that? Just under render, turn on show save frames. That's all you need to worry about right now.
And what are the different boxes?
It's showing you different, this live area, action area, and title area. I can't get down to hit OK. So if you, my OK is down here, I can't get to it. So if you were to change those and hit OK, you should then just have one square. So it's showing those 3 different squares. And then just turn it off by unchecking it. Okay, so is everybody understanding generally what we're doing? So we have a plane, we have a sun, we have some general material properties, color and transparency. Let's go in and make our materials a little bit more sophisticated. Let's give them some color and some, not just color but texture. So go online, Google, everybody's favorite search engine, under images, and let's just search for wood or concrete or something, a material. And find a material that you like. Doesn't really matter what it is. We talked about materials in rendering the other day a little bit when we were working in Photoshop. And just save it as something that you know the name of and you know the location of. So I'm just going to call this wood texture and save it on my desktop. Does everybody have a texture saved? Yes? Okay. Go back into your materials editor in V-Ray. So click on the M. And we're going to make another new material. So scene materials, create material, and standard. I'm going to call this wood texture. Call yours whatever material it is that you chose. And instead of changing the color and the transparency this time, I'm going to go under maps and I'm going to give it a refraction map. So I'm going to check this on first so that I have the option to click on the M beside it, which stands for map. So refraction you want to check on, then click on the M for map. Everybody get that far? Yep. So make a new material, a standard material. And under the material, scroll down to where it says maps. If yours doesn't have any options under it, click on maps and it'll expand the options. Click the checkbox, click the radio button for refraction to be on, and then click on the M for maps. Are you good, Angela? Are you to this point? Ready?
No, sorry.
Okay. Okay. Do you have a new material?
I do have the material.
Okay.
Then I right click on it. What do I do?
No, just have a new material, and then in your materials options over here that pop up when you click on it, right? I just have this material selected. Over here on the right, there's an option for maps, if you scroll down.
Okay.
And if you don't have any options, click on the word maps, and it'll expand all of your options.
So I'm good.
And refraction, and then click on the M for
On
maps.
the M.
Yep.
Sorry.
Okay. And in your drop down, you want to add a texture bitmap. So TEX bitmap, click on that. And then it'll bring up your Finder, and you want to scroll to where you have your file that you just downloaded, so the image file, and click Open. And if you click on Preview, your material should now have wood. I should be seeing my wood or grass or whatever material it is that you chose. Yep, you have to hit Preview. So click on your M. Now I have a big M instead of a little one. TEX bitmap. It'll bring up the Finder, and then choose your material. Hit Preview to be able to see what the material looks like, and then hit OK. And in your material editor as well, you don't have to hit OK, but you can see now that I've got a big M instead of a little m. That means that there is information held within this, right? So I'm linking the refraction mapping to a file. So I'm going to take one of my objects. I'm going to select either one, it doesn't matter, and right-click on my wood texture material and apply material to selection. And if I zoom in a bit, now when I render, apply material to selection. And then we're getting a gray box.
When I hit preview in the material editor, I only get gray.
Yep. Think.
Though preview in the refraction dialog did give me the gray, or the texture that I put.
We might have put it in the wrong map. Yeah, we need to put it under color, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking that because usually diffusion defines
Yeah, sorry, we put it in the wrong place. Just uncheck your refraction and go up under color and click on the M beside color and do the same thing. You want it to be a texture bitmap and put your texture in there. Sorry. Yeah, this is the right Tyler.
How'd you get to color of what's going on?
So go back to your material and under maps uncheck refraction.
Yep.
And then up at the top where the color is, where we changed the color before, there's an M
Yes.
beside it. Click on that. You want this to be bitmap. And then it'll ask you which file you want to be mapped. Click on wood texture. And then hit OK. And then in your preview, you should have your wood material. And if I render again, I now have wood material.
Mine is still doing the gray thing.
Okay.
So we go to.
It's a very small thing when they were gigantic.
as a material?
Yes.
Great. Awesome.
Question, Aaron.
Yes, sir.
So on yours, all the planes that are vertical,
Uh-huh.
the material comes in it horizontally.
Uh-huh.
What if mine comes in vertically? Is there a way to adjust that?
Yes, excellent setting, or excellent question. So under the material map settings, you can go in and, we should have all started with the same material, but you can go in and adjust a couple of different things. The first will be down at the bottom, the scale. If you change this to a smaller number, 0 and 0.1. So I'm just making this 1/10 the size that it was previously. I should, when I preview it now, the texture should be a lot smaller. And when I render it, the texture should be a lot different. Still getting the main. Why is this? This is my punishment for making class at 8 o'clock today. Nothing is working correctly.
Where were you adjusting the size again?
If you,
M?
yeah, if you go back into your map, filter blur gamma, color multiplier.
Then we see that we read the noise for size. And
If-
if you do height and width, it really gives you the option between 1 and 0.
Yep. Repeat. Oh, that's overlapping them. So we want it to repeat at 1. What's our scale adjustment? Now I made it mad. Jack, to answer your question, the place that you should be able to control that is under Material, down at the bottom. If you change your UVW type to Object,
Okay.
it should allow you to adjust the pattern relative to the object, and then you can go in and adjust the rotation. So you might need to rotate it 90 degrees around the x-axis or the y-axis or mirror it. I'm not sure what I'm not doing correctly to be able to adjust the size. I'll check on that during the break and get back to you. Sorry, you don't need to sit here and watch me fumble around with this. Why is that not working? Anyway, I'll figure it out in a minute. So that's generally how you start putting materials in. Under maps, you can apply a bump map to it, which will change the surface of it. So if I put in the same wood texture as a bump map and preview it, it's going to start giving that surface some depth based on the whites and the blacks in the image. So if I render it again, I should be getting some more depth to the surface this time. Should be somewhat less flat. So while this is rendering, I'm going to switch over into just a web browser and show you a couple places where you can get materials that are pre-made so that you don't have to go through all of this. There's a website called flyingarchitecture.com, and under materials, it has all sorts of materials for V-Ray, and you can go in and choose which ones you want. So under concrete, it has a bunch of different qualities of concrete, so you can see what the renderings look like within these. So maybe I like this one, and you download it and save it. And I'm just saving it to my desktop. It saves it as a zip file, so you need to go in and unzip it. Where is that? This concrete file here. And in here you can see that it has an image file that's concrete, and it has an image and then a bump, and then it gives you a VisMat, which is the extension for the V-Ray material. So if I go into V-Ray and go back into materials, instead of making a material this time, if I right-click on Scene Material, I can load a material. What is going on out there? And it'll let me navigate to where my concrete is saved, and I can click on Open and Preview. If I click on Concrete and Preview, and now I've got that concrete in here with the colors, the images, and the bump mapping in it already. So I can apply that to my box. And then render it. And it'll have the concrete texture to it this time. And I'll check with Don and Derek. You guys should, we should have the full version of V-Ray, so I'm not sure why you don't have the standard default materials. Like in 3D Studio, V-Ray has a bunch of preset materials, and you should have access to those. Were you guys able to download a material? Did you get that? Do you want me to go through that again?
Yeah, one more time.
So flyingarchitecture.com, find a material that you like, download it. Wherever it ends up as a zip file, you need to decompress it. So on yours, you guys are on a PC, so I think it's a Zip 7 or something, WinZip 7 that you guys have. So right-click on it, and I think you have to extract all. Tell it you want to extract them to the desktop or some location. And you should end up with a file that in it has depending on what material you selected, it should have at least a file that says something .vismat. Did you get that far?
So about a JPEG of concrete, I think that.
Does it have a vismat? Could you download the material?
I didn't download it, I just saved the picture as.
No, you need to download.
Okay, I'll go back to it.
So once you've got, so, right, so leave this and then go into V-Ray. And you want to make a new material. So under materials, you actually want to load a new material. So under scene materials, right click and click load material. And then navigate to wherever you have that file. And if you have two of them, one of them is just a more recent version. So either one of them should be fine. Click on either of the vismats and hit open. And then once you have that loaded, you can click on it and say preview. And you should see what the material looks like in the little window. I'm sorry? When we were adding depth to the surface, you do that through the bump map. So if I go back to my wood texture, down to bump, yeah. And then you might need to increase the scale of it. What is going on out there? Did everybody get a material loaded that they downloaded? Did that work for you? Yes, okay, great. So I think that website is a really great resource. I'm sure there's others. This is the one I go to, so it has concrete, wood, glass. It has good glass. Has hair. Not that you really need hair. You can also just Google V-Ray material, I don't know, plastic. And you should find free V-Ray materials all over the place. So if I want this shiny red plastic, I do the same thing, I save it, wait for my save to finish. Extract the file. Let's see what it called it. Plastic red shiny. I go into V-Ray. Materials. Load. What did we end up with? Oh, you have to make sure there's a bunch of different versions of V-Ray. There's V-Ray for 3D Studio, there's V-Ray for Rhino, there's V-Ray for AutoCAD, I think. Make sure it's V-Ray for Rhino that the materials are. Otherwise, it'll give you a different file extension. This one doesn't. These are free materials for 3D Studio. So that's one of the reasons on the flying architecture.
Alright, so I got a request in
Huh?
the comments of one of my
So under materials, V-Ray materials, I guess I just know that these guys are for Rhino. Okay, sorry, that was a little bit of a hodgepodge. Do you generally think you have a sense of how to go in and apply different qualities to materials, either by putting your own image in or by downloading a material online?
Are these materials generally scaled correctly?
They should generally, the ones that you download should be, yours need to be scaled, and I'm going to look for the setting that I'm overlooking during the break. And I'll show you how to scale your materials when we come back. Any other general questions? You can go in, there's a lot of other types of lights. If I wanted to create a spotlight in addition to my sun, I can do that in V-Ray or in Rhino. If I turn on my light, I can edit light by looking. Edit light by looking and look through the spotlight at what I want the spotlight to shine on. Let's say I just want it to be on this. Hit enter and that adjusts the shape of that light. And so when I go in and render now, I should have not only the sun but also a spotlight shadow. You can kind of see there's a light. You're getting a little bit of the ring of the light here. And the shadows must be turned off. Yes, Angela?
Why can't we do this in the current Rhino?
You can. The render engine is better in V-Ray. So you'll get better representation of light and shadow and materials.
Why can't we be ready?
In Rhino 5.
It's just not installed. I don't know. I'll check with Don and Derek.
But we can do that on our own computers?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
I hate using, I'm so bad at the Microsoft, the PCs. That drives me crazy.
Yeah. So you can see there's a spotlight now. The shadow isn't turned on for it, so if I go in and click on it, I should be able to turn on the shadow. I'm sorry, what? I can't hear you.
The yellow that you got highlighted, that was the camera view, right?
This is the spotlight, and I adjusted where the light was shining by using an option called Edit Light by Looking. So it makes the light into a camera so that you're looking at what the light's going to shine on. So this is as if I were looking from the viewpoint of my spotlight. So it just lets me move it around. Like if I wanted to look at this other rectangle or other box, you can see that my light just changed. It's really hard to kind of get these oriented three-dimensionally, so Edit Light by Looking is the best way to adjust lights. Okay, let's take a break. You guys play around with it, come up with other questions. We'll figure out what's going on with why not everybody's getting color in their renderings, and I'll find the mapping. I'll figure out the mapping issue. We'll meet back in like 10 minutes or so, 10, 15 minutes.